What's up, Fuse? How's everybody doing tonight? I had to do it. Let's give it for the band one more time for leading us in worship tonight. Man, that song been so good. That just hits. I just can't believe how much love he has for all of us. My name is Titus, Bourne. I get to serve on the student team here at Fuse and at GM. And tonight we're continuing our series, Old School. We're going through the book of Judges. It's been a fun series. It's been such a powerful series. Pastor Corey talked about being the somebody that it takes somebody. 2 weeks ago, I got to talk about how there's a cycle that we find ourselves stuck in. How many of you have been learning something throughout the series? Let me see your hand. Can anybody name one of the characters Corey talked about last week? That's one. Good job. Yep. The boys just killed it, guys. It's because they say it louder. That's all you got to do. Just say it louder next time and you'll win. Trust me. So tonight we're going to continue our series through Judges. We're going to look at a guy named Gideon. Everyone say Gideon. And you know how last week Corey talked about how it takes somebody? Well, Gideon is struggling with being that somebody. He's struggling with the call of God on his life. And oftentimes throughout the story, we're going to see Gideon feels a little unprepared for what God is calling him to step into. And I had to ask, has anyone ever felt unprepared in here tonight in a situation? Just raise your hand real quick. I was thinking about different situations. Like have you ever walked into a test day and you completely forgot you had a test that day? And you just bomb, right? Like sometimes I remember I would just go down the Scantron and just go back and forth across it, because I don't know any of the, I know I don't know the answers, right? Or you've been at a restaurant with a group of friends or your family and the waiter comes or waitress comes and they're taking your order and everyone else knows what they want except for you. And you're trying to read this menu in 0.2 seconds and you're just saying, and you don't know what you want. You don't know anything, right? Completely unprepared. I'll tell you, I had an unprepared moment this week. My brother and his wife had a baby. It's a girl. Her name is Dakota. She is adorable. But I went up there to the hospital and everything, and it was just super cool to see your brother has a kid. You think about all the dumb things he's done in his life. That guy's a father. It's awesome. But they are just so excited. But I remember they hand me the baby, and that's not really that's not my area of expertise. I feel extremely unprepared. So they hand me this baby, because when you're going up there, right, you're going to hold this baby. So I'm psyching myself up on the way up to the hospital. Okay, just you're right there, right? So they put the baby right here, and I freeze. Because all I'm thinking is, don't drop her. Because all you know, right, is don't drop the baby. And I remember I'm holding this baby. I'm trying to do my very, very best. So that happened this week. And another thing that happened at one point in my life is that I worked at a place called Marble Slab in Great American Cookie right here. Y'all familiar? Hey, that place is good, okay? It's good. So when they opened up being Great American Cookie and Marble Slab, they were hiring. I was a 15, 16-year-old at the time. And so I went in for the job interview, got the job. And I remember, I didn't know what it meant to have a job. I didn't know what was supposed to happen, right? So I remember getting my schedule, and all I had was a polo and a visor, okay? And so as I show up to work that day, because they just told me, hey, be here at 4 o'clock. I'm okay. I show up in really white blue jeans, they're light wash blue jeans, and this red shirt, and they wanted me to wear black apparently. I didn't know that, I had Jordans on. They wanted me to wear all black shoes. I didn't know all these things, right? And so then I get there, and they don't train me at all, okay? Nothing. I'm talking nothing. And I'm not bashing on them, okay? It's a great establishment. They're very good. You should go check it out after this. But when I get there, there's no training. And so I remember standing there at the little ice cream, area right here, and people are walking in, and they're looking at me, right? I'm the guy supposed to take these people orders. So they'll come in, and they'll say things I want the iced chocolate double swirl thing. And I'm I didn't know that was on our menu. I just started. The most experience I've had with ice cream is eating it, okay? I don't know how to do this part of the job. And so as I worked there for a while, my fellow employees, my fellow coworkers would train me on how to do it. But I remember feeling so unprepared every single time that I was on shift because I never got trained, right? And so I think we have all these different kinds of situations in which we feel extremely unprepared. We feel like, God, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. And tonight we're going to look at how we should respond and what God is saying to us, maybe in the moments where we feel the most unprepared. And so we're looking at Judges 6 tonight. And we're going to see in Judges 6 that the cycle continues of Judges, where the people of Israel sin, and then they fall into some sort of slavery or some sort of oppression from another nation. So we see the Midianites take over, and the Midianites continually go into all of the Israelites' villages, and they take all their things, they pillage and they steal, and they kind of mess with them throughout the course of being oppressed to them. And so in Judges 6:11, we're going to pick up in this story. The cycle again is continuing. Israel is now again in oppression. They are again not following God. And so we see in 6:11, it says, the angel of the Lord came, and he sat under the oak that was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite. His son Gideon was threshing wheat in the wine vat in order to hide it from the Midianites. Now let's stop right there, okay? Sometimes when you're in your Bible, okay, you may not know what is going on. You're reading something, you're like, I don't know any of those words at all. And so tonight, I want to show you that with you a little effort and a little research, you can actually pull a lesson out of a verse that you didn't even know had a lesson in it, okay? So we look at this verse. His son Gideon was threshing wheat in the wine vat. So what is threshing wheat? When someone says threshing wheat, it means that they're separating grain from the wheat. So there's the edible part of wheat. They're separating it out so it can be used to make all sorts of food and things that can help people find sustenance and nutrients. And so they're separating this grain out. But it's supposed to be done, is everybody tracking with me? It's supposed to be done in an open field. Everybody say open field. Okay? Threshing is supposed to be done in an open field. But in this story, he's doing it in what? What does that say? A wine vat. A wine vat is like a hole in the ground, okay? So he's like in a hole in the ground trying to thresh this wheat because he's afraid of the Midianites coming to take it. He's afraid of losing this wheat because of the Midianites. Is everybody tracking with me right now? So he's supposed to do it in an open field, open space, and yet he's in a closed space. He's in a low space. So he's doing something the wrong way knowingly. He knows where the right way is, but yet he's doing it in a place because he's afraid. And I wonder, are there times in our life where we change what we do because we're afraid of what we might lose? Gideon is afraid of what he might lose. And because of that, he's choosing willingly to do something the wrong way. So how does that look like in our lives? Well, I wonder, do we ever change the way we talk in front of certain people because we're afraid if we don't talk the same way as them, they may not be our friend anymore, right? If we don't join in on that gossip, maybe they'll think I'm like on their side. Maybe they won't be my friend anymore. So I'm going to gossip with them. I know it's wrong, but, I don't want to lose their friendship, right? Or maybe we change the way we post, right? We know the right things to post. We know the wrong things to post, but we don't want to lose that popularity. We don't want to lose those likes, right? We don't lose that status. Or maybe we don't want to lose that approval that we get from what we post. And so what do? We choose to post the wrong things. We choose to do it the wrong way. Another example, maybe we change the way we act in certain situations. We know the right response. We know what God calls us to be, what God calls us to do, but since we're afraid of losing this certain look, this certain perception of others, I think we care so much about what others think sometimes that we're willing to kind of twist what we're supposed to do. And I think as teenagers, it can be super difficult to navigate that because you feel this pressure from everyone around you to kind of conform and to fit in. And I'm telling you, I get it. I understand. It is not easy. And so tonight, as we go through this story, we're going to look at what are some strategies, what are some ways that you can combat that fear, that you can step into something new. So going through the next verses, I'm going to read for a little bit, so stay with me. It says, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Pause. Mighty warrior. What is Gideon doing right now again? You might know. He's threshing, but he's hiding, right? A man is hiding, and God is calling him a mighty warrior. And then it says, Gideon said to him, please, sir, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? And where are all his wonders that our fathers told us about? You ever been in a season where you're like, God, why? And God, where? God, why is this all happening? God, where are you? He says, hasn't the Lord brought us out of Egypt, but now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to Midian. Isn't it interesting? He's talking to an angel of the Lord and yet saying that he's abandoned by the Lord. Man, like how many of us feel like we're abandoned, but God is like right there. Like he's literally talking to you. He's interacting with you. He's pushing you. He's moving in your heart every Wednesday night, Sunday morning, when you're in your reading, when you're praying. And yet we say to ourselves, God, I just feel abandoned, but he's right there. And then God says to him, go in the strength you have and deliver Israel from the power of Midian. Am I not sending you? He said, please, Lord, how can I deliver Israel? Look, my family is the weakest, and I am the youngest. Gideon is having a who, me moment right now. Everyone do who, me? 1, 2, 3. Has anyone ever had a who, me moment? Someone looks down at you and like, hey, you're up. And it's like in small groups, you ever get called out to pray? And you're like, I don't know how to pray. All right, I don't know how to do that. All right. When I was working at Marble Slab, I'll tell you, every time someone came in and ordered something that I did not know how to make, that's what I would say. I know you're not talking to me right now. I don't know how to make that. I think about in basketball, if there's 2 seconds left on the clock, let's say, okay, and the game's tied up. Let's say this one guy at the end of the bench has not been in the game the whole time. And the coach looks down, timeout, right? And he's like, hey, you're in. What's that guy thinking? One more time. Right? That boy is not ready, right? He is not warmed up. He is not prepared. He is nervous. He's shaking in his boots out there, right? He is not ready to get in the game. I think we face these who, me moments. And Gideon right now, he's getting called to deliver his nation, to be the hero. And he's saying to himself, who, me? God, how can I? God, how can I? Have you ever had that moment? You ever had that thought? God, how can I be the one? Because you see, Gideon is getting called when he's least expecting it. He's getting called when he's feeling the least qualified. He's getting called when he's literally at a low point in his life, right? He's under the ground. So he's down. He's literally at a point where he's doubting God. And yet God is calling him to do something amazing. He's at a point where he feels disqualified. He feels inadequate. He feels like he can't serve this purpose. And yet God is calling him. I wonder if anyone in this room is experiencing that tonight, where God has been tugging on your heart. He's been calling you home. He's been calling you to have an impact. He's been calling you to do something more with your life, but you're stuck saying, who, me? God, how can I? How can I be the one, God? God, how can I be the one to spread your word and be the light? God, I don't know the Bible very well. I don't have any verses memorized. God, how can I be someone that changes their ways? God, haven't you seen how much I've struggled with the same addiction, the same problem, year after year, month after month, day after day? God, how could you say that I can change? God, how can I be the leader that they talk about at Fuse? How can I be the influencer they talk about? Don't you know that I can't stop going to that website every night? Don't you know I can't stop just wanting the approval of everyone around me? That I'm addicted to that approval? God, how can I be the leader when I'm so focused on all these other things? God, how can I raise my hands during worship? I was raising the bottle this weekend. God, how can I be these things? Don't you know how disqualified I am? Don't you know all the things I've done? I think some of us beat ourselves up to this point where we we actually get in the way of what God is calling us to step into. And there's a turning point. There's a chance in all of our lives to turn from all that and to step into something more. And Gideon is facing that moment. But I think so often we look at our position in life, not knowing that God is constantly looking at our potential. He's saying, I know where you think you are, but let me tell you what I see. Because in Gideon, he says, I see a mighty warrior. I see you in hiding. I see you feeling abandoned. I see you feeling disqualified, but I see a mighty warrior. You see, God calls you to be what he plans on creating you to be. Because Gideon was at his lowest, but God was going to make him a liberator. Gideon was at his weakest, but God was going to make him a warrior because God sees the potential, not your position. He sees who you can be, who he wants to make you. And so if we continue to sit there and say, God, it's not me. God, I'm not the one. God, it's not me. I'm not the guy. I'm not the girl for this job. God is saying, quit saying that and start believing in what I see. I see a student who has a sphere of influence different than everyone else. Did you know that? Did you know that in your life, you have a different impact than someone else next to you? That you know different people than the person next to you, which means that you have a different opportunity and ability to reach certain people that other people can't reach. But when we disqualify ourselves, when we tell God that it's not us, we're actually preventing the opportunity for that person to be reached. Let that sink in for a second. That right now Gideon is facing a moment. He's facing a moment. So if he continues to believe what he's believing, to keep doing what he's been doing, the fate of Israel is at hand. See, he calls you to be what he plans on creating you to be. For Gideon, he calls Gideon to be something that he doesn't even see in himself. Like some of us need to change our perspective a little bit. Quit seeing all the things you've done wrong and start seeing all the ways God can redeem what you've done wrong. Quit seeing all of the worst moments. Quit seeing all the things that you've been made fun of for, all the things that you've gone through, and start seeing how God can use you if you would just say yes. You may not see it in yourself, but man, God sees something in you. He sees something in you. I don't know what your struggle is. I don't know what you've constantly been going back and forth to. I don't know probably a lot of y'all's names in this room. That's how much Fuse has been growing. But I know God sees something in you. And he wants to use you. Second thing, he calls you something you weren't raised to be. In this story, throughout this chapter of Judges 6, Gideon's family, his father, has built an altar to the god Baal. And Baal is this false god. It's a sinful religion. And so he has built an altar to sin. They're worshiping sin in Gideon's household. And God says to him, take your father's young bull and second bull, 7 years old, and tear down the altar of Baal that belongs to your father and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Build a well-constructed altar to the Lord your God on top of this rock. So as he's getting this call, as he's wrestling with all these things, we're going to see that Gideon has to now step into a new level of faith. He has to be willing and brave to tear down what his father built up and be obedient to build up what God is calling him to build. And we see Gideon, he tears it down. He does exactly what God asked him to do, and he builds up the altar, the thing for God. I just wonder sometimes, do we need to tear down? Do we need to tear down what we've been raised in a little bit? Let's get real tonight. Maybe some of you have been raised in households that haven't always put God first. Maybe it's the divorce. Maybe it's what was prioritized. Maybe it's what was the thing that was on top. Maybe the thing above God, the things that was worshipped. And just because you were raised a certain way, just because you were raised in something that wasn't godly does not mean you have to repeat those same mistakes. Just because you were raised in an environment that didn't prioritize God, that worshiped all the wrong things, that you felt neglected in or you felt unseen in, it doesn't mean that you have to repeat the same cycle. That sometimes what families need is for the student, is for the kid, is for the young one to step out in faith and say, I'm tearing down the old and I'm building up the new. I'm tearing down the sin and I'm building up God in our life. Sometimes it takes you being the change for your family. Because I wonder how many of us say, I wish my family was different. I wish my family was like that family. I wish my family went to church together. I wish my family worshiped together. I think those are good wishes, but I think it takes action from you to be the one to say, I'm going to get my family to change. I'm going to tear down those old habits. I'm going to tear down those addictions. I'm going to tear down those sins. I'm going to build something on God's rock. That's the chance you have tonight. I look out on Sunday mornings right now, and I can't help but be overwhelmed with emotion and gratitude as I watch students leading their families in worship. I see it every single week. So if that's you tonight, let me tell you, I don't care how old you are. I don't care how much you know about the Bible. You have the potential to change your family. You have the potential to change your community. You have the potential to change your team, to change your friends. But you have to start seeing yourself in a different light. Because God is calling us to spread his word, to share with others the love and the hope of Jesus. And if we continue to disqualify ourselves, if we continue to live in fear, we might miss it. We might miss out on the opportunity. God sees you. He sees your potential. Would you start to let him use you? Would you start to get out of your own way and let God take control? Let's pray. God, as we come before you tonight, God, we're just so thankful for all you've done and all you are. God, I pray for any student in the room tonight dealing with the guilt or the shame of what they've done in their past, or thinking about all the things that disqualify them, God, I pray they know that you see a leader. You see someone that can have an impact on every single person around them if they would just say yes to the calling. Just say yes. God, knowing it's scary, knowing it's uncomfortable, knowing though they don't feel the most prepared, God, but saying, God, if I just have you with me, that's all it takes. So God, I don't know what these students may be going through. I don't know if they want to admit what they're going through. I don't know if they want to face what they're going through. But God, I pray tonight that you break down some walls, that some students let you in. They quit fighting it. They quit running from it. And that they know, God, that you love them, you see them, and you're calling them to be something more. Something they may not have seen in themselves, something they may not have been raised to be, but something that they can be. Because God, what you call us to be, God, we are ready to be created to be. We love you and praise you in your name. Amen.